and welcome to the Lofty Golf Channel. I'm your host, Ben. So the tagline for this show is golf is hard. Let's make it easier. In every episode, I'm going to look to take something that can be complicated or can be convoluted or isn't always talked about, and I'm going to look to break it down to make it as simple to understand as possible and help give you guys all the information that you need to go play your best. So today's episode focuses on drivers, and more specifically, if you think you need a new driver or not, there's 3 keys that I like to look for when looking at somebody's driver and doing their fitting. So if you are a guy that wants to hit that 9-iron rather than that 6-iron into that green, if you want to go for that par 5 and 2, if you want to, not hit driver or 3-wood on that tough par 3, if you want to blow it past your buddies, if you want to shoot your lowest round ever, if you just want to have more fun, today's episode is for you. So, the 3 keys that I like to look for when determining if somebody needs a new driver or not. They are, number 1, have you been fitted for your driver before? Pretty easy, but we'll cover that in depth as we keep going. Number 2, how old is that driver? It's going to sit somewhere on the spectrum between red alert and let's investigate. We'll cover that again as we keep going as well. And then number 3 is, what does that ball flight look like? How efficiently is that ball flying through the air? If you have been fitted for your driver before, chances are it's probably pretty good, but we need to investigate that. And we can do so by looking with a trained eye at the ball as it's flying. All that and more in today's episode on drivers. Let's jump in. All right, so straight into number 1. Have you been fit for your driver before? This is the first one that I'm going to cover because to me it's the most important. And I think you'll see why in just a second. But think of the simplest decision tree you've ever seen before in your life, right? Have you been fit for your driver before? It's right up here at the top, yes or no. If the answer is no, then you definitely need to go get fit right away. So a little bit more detail on why fitting is number 1 for me. It is really, really hard to take a stab at what driver is best for you if you've never been fitted before. If you're going to the store and you've got a big bag of stuff like this and you're looking through drivers and who knows what the heck you're looking at. What is loft? What loft do I need? What kind of head do I need? What brand works best? What shaft flex do I need? How long does it need to be? Exactly. It is very, very difficult. Again, let me use my driver as an example to go through and just show you how different drivers can be. This driver is a perfect example of why you need to go get fit. Okay? It is a D3, which is the lower spinning version. It's got a heavy weight in the draw position in the back here on this bar. It is in the C2 position. It is the Devotion 6 05 flex, which is a 60-ish gram X flex. It's 44 1/4 inches long. It's got a standard multi-compound blue grip on it. I don't know if this driver exists anywhere else in the world except for this one that's right here in my hand. And in addition to that, I don't know if there's one thing here that I didn't change, right? So I put the different weight in there. This is not the stock weight. I changed the position here. That is not the stock position. I changed the loft a little bit. This is a different loft than what you're going to find in most stores, the 9.5 rather than probably the 10.5. I did 44 1/4 inches, where most drivers are stock at 45, 45.5, or even 46 inches. And again, this shaft here is a really high-end shaft, great shaft. It's made by a company called Oban, who does really good stuff, performs great, feels amazing, right? So that's why you need to go get fit, because the club that comes out and is for you is for you. It's not something that you can just go pull off of a rack, right? But then the chances of you getting fantastic performance from it, it just goes through the roof, right? So that segues really nicely into another good conversation with fitting, is the value of fitting. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'm not good enough to go get fit. I don't play enough golf, all of those things. Well, so number 1, a really good player actually can play. Nobody's going to play as well as if they are playing with their fitted equipment, but the higher the skill level you are, the easier it's going to be for you to adapt to any different kind of golf club that's given to you. Actually, the lower skill level you are, the more likely you should be to have gone and gotten fit. Golf is a really, really hard game, like we said when we started, right? Don't make the game harder on yourself by playing equipment that isn't fit for you. But then that value proposition also comes in here. So this driver here, I don't know, let's just say it's a $600 driver, right? Which is really expensive. And then that fitting itself is an extra $150. So you've got $750 in your hands. Well, if you take this driver and you play it for 2 years, then you're actually making out, right? So if you would have taken one driver and bought it and it was $500, you know, maybe it's this one, right? And then you test and you play with this one for a while, and it turns out that this one doesn't work, and then 6 months or a year from now, you actually go get another one, and maybe that one works, maybe it doesn't, but it's still not fitted, then you're even out $250, right? You spent $750 on one driver to begin with, but you're actually saving yourself by going and getting fit and keeping that club for a little longer. That even applies a little bit more to some of the other clubs that we'll cover later on. Another reason why I put driver fitting at the very top of those three is because of the potential gains that you can see, right? Not only is it difficult to go pull something out of the rack that works well for you, and you know there's so many variables that you can change, but in addition to that, by changing those variables, you can change your game. So the average player, you know, we're talking, you know, anybody that shoots 70 to 120, the average player gains 20 yards of distance when they do a driver fitting. So in addition to that, I've also done a couple fittings in the past that should get everybody very excited, right? A good example is a fit I did not that long ago. This guy's name was Don. He came in and he was hitting his driver between 175 and 180. And he also had a pretty significant slice on the ball, right? It was going left to right every time pretty hard. It was spinning a lot. By the time we were done, I got him hitting it between 215 and 220. So, you know, take that for what it's worth, but I'll take 35 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards even on some of those hits, right? It was pretty amazing. His ball speed jumped way, way high up. It got, you know, maybe 15 to 20 extra miles an hour if I remember right. And then in addition to that, the ball didn't curve nearly as much. So if you want at least 20 extra yards on your new driver, if you want to go for that par 5 and 2 and everything else, like I was saying in the beginning, that's why driver fitting is so incredibly awesome. Because think about all the amount of time that you would need to spend working on your technique and working on fitness and everything else like that. Not to say that that's not important, but in an hour and a half with an expert fitter, think about what you could potentially pick up. If you want to pick up 40 yards or 20 yards or 15 yards or whatever it is in an hour and a half, that is amazing. Think about how hard you would have to work at everything else to get that to work. All right, so number two is age. How old is your driver? This age conversation I really like to think of on sort of a spectrum, if you will, right? So here would be the red end and here is the green end, right? And you got that color coordination going to yellow in the middle. So if you're on the red end, anything that is more than 6 or 7 years old or even 10 years old, you're in like the red alert zone, right? You absolutely need to go get fit for a new driver. In addition to the club potentially not being fit for you, there's just so much tech out there that has come out in those last 7 to 10 years that would make that new driver amazing. That driver that I've told you about before with that fitting with Don, his driver was actually 7 years old, so huge potential gains there. That yellow zone is sort of that, call it 5 to 3 years. You definitely want to investigate, and while you definitely are going to make some gains, it's not going to be like life-changing just from one brand new driver to the other. Again, if it's fit, who knows what gains you could make, but yellow zone. Green zone would be 2 to 3 years, and even last year's model, right? So 2 to 3 years old, if it's 2 or 3 years old on a driver, you can consider it somewhat green, right? I would definitely still investigate based upon what we're going to talk about in number 1 and number 3, but if it's 2 or 3 years old, you're probably in okay shape. A good example is even last year's model that I was playing. versus this year's model. The new M5 that I'm playing, I even picked up 10 yards. So that was a fitted club from last year versus a fitted M5 from this year. 10 yards for me in 1 year is pretty crazy. All right, so number 3, and certainly not the least, this can also be an incredible, incredible thing for you, is the efficiency of the ball flight and what the ball flight looks like. So a couple of descriptors there. Let me grab a couple close here to demonstrate, but if your ball flight looks anything other than like that when it's flying, when it takes off, if it's not flying very flat, or flat like the shaft, then you have an inefficient ball flight. It is really cool to see a ball start off really low and go and fly way up into the air, but that is a very, very inefficient ball flight. And what you're actually looking at is a low launch, high spin ball. And I'm sure you've heard it all the time, but we are looking for a high initial launch and low spin. And what that does is that optimizes the total distance that you can carry and you can gain out of that driver. Again, looking to optimize the launch conditions. So when you're playing golf and you go out there and you can watch that ball flight, if you see the ball do anything than fly very flat like this, again, if you see it going down range and if you see it curving and going up in the air like that, you definitely need to investigate and go and get fit for a new driver. You're probably leaving 30 or 40 yards on the table for sure. Another one is sort of that shotgun effect, right? If you're hitting balls and they start off straight, left, right, high, low, left, right, whatever it is, shotgun effect. If there is no pattern, then getting a club fitting is going to be really, really helpful for making that more predictable, right? It's going to do two things. It's going to take everything and take it from here in terms of dispersion and bring it into here, but then also a really good club fitter will ask you, what ball flight do you like more, or which one is less destructive to your game? And they'll actually fit that driver and do everything they can to make it create only that one flight. So if you slice the ball and hook the ball and whatever, but you really don't like to slice the ball, then they will do everything they can to make that ball hook. So if you do miss it and the ball hooks, it's going to be better in your mind and it's going to be more playable for you. The other thing too is that if you're looking at a ball flight and you have a ball that always goes to the right and it always hooks back, or it always goes to the left and always slices back, then you also really need to consider getting yourself a new driver and a driver fitting. The reason is, if you're looking at that and a fitter sees that, they're going to be able to do a lot of things for you to be able to help you to bring that in. Again, you're looking at everything that starts over here and ends up over there, and they're going to take it and they're going to bring it all in. So those are the really fun things to look at when you're out there. If you see the ball go all over the place, if you see the ball rising, you certainly need to investigate. A trained eye can really tell pretty quickly if you need a new driver fitting or not. But you definitely want to go get consulted and go work with a fitter and have them tell you what plays best for you. All right, so just wrapping up today's episode, the 3 things again. Have you been fit before? How old is your driver? If it's more than 2 or 3 years old, investigate. And number 3, what does that ball flight look like? If you're having that shotgun blast, or if you're having that single hook or slice or whatever it is, or if you're seeing that inefficient rise ball, you really need to investigate. Again, go get fit and you will be very, very surprised with what you might come out with. Again, the average person gains 20 yards of distance off of their driver with a driver fitting. One of the lowest or the fastest ways to lower your scores is to hit it further. And again, if you want to hit 6-iron rather than 4-iron into that par 5 or whatever it is, if you just want to go for that par 5 and 2, if you want to hit it past your buddies, please definitely go take a look and go get fit for that new driver. Thanks everybody. Ben signing off. If you really like the video, subscribe. I'll be posting all the time. Like the video, click the bell button, whatever you want to do. I really appreciate it. The more that you do, the more that I will be able to do, and the more that I'll be able to help everybody.